Nick Wilde, Ace Attorney. Written by Berserker88 and Jack of Mines. Chapter 2. Lion and the Lamb. First impressions had never been trustworthy as far as Nick's career was concerned. He had faced numerous witnesses before, of various species, occupation, and mentality, enough that he considered himself well-versed in how to deal with them. Even so, the you who approached the stand now was enough to give even him a slight pause. She was dressed in bright, leafy green attire, somewhere between a business gown and hippie robes. A pair of large glasses adorned her face, and she wore the usual bead necklace of a Mystic Spring member. A pencil was wedged between her ear, while a pink flower stuck out from the puff of wool on top of her head. It was like she couldn't quite decide who she wanted to be today. Judy expected an answer, though.
Please state your name and occupation.
The you gave a polite curtsy and smile, shaking a bit as she did so.
Sorry, this is my first time in a courtroom. I'm a little nervous.
Clawhauser nodded in sympathy.
Oh, I completely understand. First trial I was on, I fainted right before I could hand down my verdict. How embarrassing.
Name and occupation, please.
I know, right? It's so nerve-wracking. Don't get me wrong, it's exciting too. There's just so many mammals.
Name and occupation!
She jumped a little, nearly dropping her glasses.
Don Bellwether, I'm an intern at the Mystic Spring Oasis.
This should be fun. So you're the employee who discovered the body.
That's me.
She shuddered a little.
Gosh, it sounds so scary when you put it like that.
Ms. Bellwether, can you testify about what you observed when you came to work that morning?
Judy asked, a bit more gently. She clapped her hooves together and smiled.
I'd be happy to. Anything to do my part for the community.
I don't like this. All the witness did was discover the body. So why is Prosecutor Fluff so confident about her testimony?
I don't know, but I look forward to watching you find out.
Finnick smiled wickedly.
Why did I hire you again?
Witness testimony. A very bad morning.
I arrived at Mystic Spring at about 9 a.m. to start my shift. Everything seemed fine until I entered the lounge and saw Nangi. She was slumped over in the pool, and lying next to her was the defendant. I'm sure of it. I couldn't believe he was capable of something like that, but the proof was right in front of me. So of course I immediately called the police. Then I sat down and meditated until they arrived.
You meditated? Right next to her body?
Oh, of course not. I was at least 10 feet away.
How the witness deals with grief is irrelevant. What's important is what she saw.
Which wasn't much. I could definitely work with this.
Ms. Bellwether, can you just clarify one thing for me? You testified that you saw the defendant, Yaxley Mountain, there at the scene?
Bellwether nodded eagerly.
Yes, I did.
And did you find anything strange about that?
Nick narrowed his eyes.
What is she up to?
The sheep frowned, idly pulling on a piece of her wool in thought.
Well, now that you mention it, I did find it strange that he had gotten there before me.
Why would you think that?
She asked, in a tone of voice that implied she knew exactly why.
Because Yax would have unlocked the front doors to get in, but when I got there, I had to open them myself. So I guess he must have locked himself in there all night.
Nick tensed.
Thank you. Nothing further.
She made no attempt to hide her smirk.
You may proceed with your cross-examination, Mr. Wilde.
The gallery went into an uproar, needing several slams of Clawhauser's gavel to settle down. But even the judge was squinting suspiciously at Yax now. Nick forced himself to keep smiling, a very noticeable effort.
And that's how you get crucial testimony from a useless witness. That sly bunny.
Finnick didn't need to be a mind reader to get the gist.
Damn. What do we do now? Prove someone else could have snuck in?
Nick shook his head firmly.
No, but she's hoping we'll waste the effort trying. We need to find another avenue of attack, and fast. If this testimony is just to trip me up, then maybe she hasn't studied it as closely as she should have. That's the only chance we have left.
Cross-examination. A very bad morning.
I arrived at Mystic Spring at about 9 a.m. to start my shift.
Hold it! What exactly is it that you do at the Oasis anyway?
I work in the storeroom at the back, keeping inventory on supplies and things like that.
Indeed, you can see the storeroom on the diagram of the building. The witness would have passed straight through the crime scene to get to it.
Nick felt the need to check that for himself, just to be sure. Couldn't chance anything now.
Nope, that's a storeroom, alright. Right where they said it'd be. Anything else you do at the Oasis?
The sheep looked down, blushing visibly as she twiddled her thick hoof fingers together.
I don't participate in any of the club's usual activities, if that's what you mean. I'm an intern, not a naturalist. This getup is really just to fit in.
Wouldn't you fit in more with no getup? Kidding! I can assure you that no one in this room wants to see you naked.
I do.
Shut up, Yax!
Everything seemed fine until I entered the lounge and saw Nangi. She was slumped over in the pool, and lying next to her was the defendant. I'm sure of it.
Hold it! Why did you assume only Nangi was dead? From that perspective, it seems like neither of them would look too hot.
He didn't seem dead, though. Just seriously out of it, like someone waking up from a long nap. I would have given him some first aid and smelling salts, but Nangi.
She trailed off, biting her lip.
It was very brave of you to come to the stand today.
You're doing the right thing.
She wiped a small tear from her eye.
Thank you. I never thought I would have so much support.
Great! Now she looks like a hero, and I look like a jerk.
I couldn't believe he was capable of something like that, but the proof was right in front of me. So of course I immediately called the police.
Hold it! About what time would you say this was?
Objection! What time the witness called the police is irrelevant.
Oh, no you don't. This testimony is about the discovery of the body, right? I'd say knowing when the call was made is quite relevant.
I agree.
Clawhauser said, taking another bite from his donut.
That's good. Objection overruled. Miss Bellwether, please amend your testimony.
I remember it clearly. I called the police at exactly 9:28 a.m. Then I sat down and meditated until they arrived.
He got some more info out of her, but I don't see much in the way of a contradiction.
Me neither.
Nick smiled anyway.
But that doesn't mean we're out of options. I think I found that weak spot I was looking for.
I arrived at Mystic Spring at about 9 a.m. to start my shift.
Hold it! Now wait just a minute! Or do you not remember how long that is?
What are you talking about? Of course I do.
Then, please, enlighten me. As to how you came into work at 9 a.m., but didn't call the police until 9:28? That's hardly what I would call an immediate response.
Bellwether stiffened, sweating nervously as she tugged on her collar.
You see...
The witness was clearly in shock from seeing the body. Nothing more.
For nearly half an hour?
Wait, I remember now. I went into my calming meditation before calling the police. I'm so sorry for the mix-up. I just couldn't think straight with...
She suddenly burst into tears.
I'm not sure which one I want to strangle more right now.
Can you please testify just a bit more for us?
Clawhauser asked, clearly struggling not to cry himself.
I'll try.
Witness testimony. Screaming of the lamb.
I admit it. When I saw the body, I freaked out. I just had to close my eyes and calm down before I could do anything. The sight of Miss Nangi in such a state, done in with that grisly sledgehammer. It was all too much for my poor fragile mind to bear. Can you please find it in your hearts to forgive me?
Of course we can. Poor thing.
Clawhauser had lost his battle against the waterworks. Bailiff Bogo passed him a box of tissues and needed at least one for himself. Judy probably would have gone over to hug her if she could.
I know this has been very traumatic for you, but don't worry, you'll be done here soon.
She shot a pointed glare at the defense team, as if daring them to say otherwise, then continued to comfort her. Clawhauser blew loudly into a tissue.
We don't need to hear any more. You can go home and rest now.
Hold it! I still want to cross-examine her, you know?
Haven't you done enough already?
The gallery was quick to add their own input.
Yeah, leave her alone.
I knew foxes were cold-hearted.
Get out of the courtroom, jerks!
Order! Order!
Clawhauser brought the noise back down, though not because he disagreed. Finnick practically gagged in disgust.
You think she's actually buying into that crap, or just trying to put pressure on us?
Hard to say. Maybe she really doesn't want us to cross-examine this testimony because she's worried for the poor thing. Or it's because she spotted the same glaring contradiction that I have.
You found a contradiction in that sheep sob story?
Sure did. Hopps wasn't expecting this testimony, and it shows.
He flexed out his fingers.
It's time to turn the tables.
Cross-examination. Screaming of the lamb.
I admit it. When I saw the body, I freaked out. I just had to close my eyes and calm down before I could do anything. The sight of Miss Nangi in such a state, done in with that grisly sledgehammer.
Objection! Well, well. What you just said is awfully revealing.
I told you I'm not revealing anything!
She blushed furiously, trying to cover herself up even more.
Not about that!
Nick pulled up his info on the murder weapon, looking it over carefully.
That sledgehammer you mentioned. About 30 inches long, wooden handle, big honkin' blood stain on it.
That's the one. I think I would know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Actually, you shouldn't know. Because that hammer was at the bottom of the pleasure pool until the police pulled it up!
Bellwether's wool puffed up violently and without warning, sending her glasses, pencil, and flower flying in different directions.
Objection! The witness must have heard about the hammer before the trial.
Judy yelled, pointing at him.
I don't think so. Even I didn't know about it until just a little while ago.
That's not something you should be bragging about, Nick.
Nick ignored him.
And that was before Lamb Chop here even came in. We haven't so much as mentioned it since.
He pointed right back at her.
So there's no way she should have known about it.
Judy growled, clutching one of her ears tightly. Clawhauser furrowed his brow in thought.
Then how did she know about it? Do you have an explanation, Mr. Wilde?
As a matter of fact, I do. I believe that the sledgehammer was not, in fact, submerged at the time of the incident. It was Miss Bellwether herself who chucked it into the pleasure pool.
Witness!
Judy was glaring far more viciously than a bunny should be capable of.
Did you lie to me?
So even Hopps didn't know about that little tidbit, huh?
Bellwether tried her best to avoid that fierce gaze.
I wouldn't say lie exactly, but I may have withheld some things.
You will tell us the truth, now.
Okay.
Witness testimony. You have to believe me.
After I saw the body, I was worried that someone might have stolen from the storeroom. I went to check it, but this is so embarrassing. I realized I had lost my key. So I saw that hammer sitting there and gave the padlock a good old whack. As it turned out, no one had gotten in after all. But I was worried about getting pulled into this, so I threw the hammer into the water.
Nick and Judy shared a look of silent disbelief, for once in total agreement. Nick spoke first.
So, let me get this straight. You showed up to work to find your boss dead and a coworker unconscious. But instead of calling the police, you used the murder weapon to break into your own storeroom?
Well, when you say it like that, it just sounds insane.
Sledgehammer updated in the court record.
You think maybe your priorities were a bit off?
I know, but I've only just started working there and my boss up and croaks on me. I had to know how much damage this was going to do to the Oasis.
And your job. I'm sorry your employer's brutal murder was so inconvenient for you.
She smiled brightly.
Aw, thanks. Maybe you're not so bad after all.
Something tells me you're not gonna get your point across.
Something tells me you're right.
Clawhauser promptly scarfed down the rest of his gavel donut, knowing he was going to need it.
Mr. Wilde, you may proceed.
Finnick couldn't even muster up anger.
How are we supposed to tackle something like this?
It's fishy as all heck, yet somehow still solid. Guess there's only one thing to do.
Cross-examination. You have to believe me.
After I saw the body, I was worried that someone might have stolen from the storeroom. I went to check it, but this is so embarrassing. I realized I had lost my key.
Hold it! Then you have a separate key for the storeroom?
That's right. I usually keep it on a keychain, so I didn't realize until then that it was gone.
Any idea when you lost it?
She looked thoughtfully up at the ceiling.
I definitely had it the day of the murder. I performed my job as usual, was wrapping up. Oh, maybe it happened when we were evacuated.
Evacuated?
You heard about the pipe bursting, didn't you? When that happened, Nangi ordered everyone out of the building due to the flooding. Good thing I wasn't naked like most of them.
That must have been a sight to see. About how long was the building empty?
Approximately 1 hour. That's when the construction crew moved in and started working on it.
Hiding information again?
Please. This is all basic knowledge that anyone who actually studied the case would know. The only reason I didn't mention it before is because I saw no relation to a murder that happened hours later.
We'll see about that. Miss Bellwether, do you know where you might have left your keys at that time?
I was attending a special aerobics class before it happened. I put my keys down for a while, so maybe someone there swiped it.
Storeroom key added to the court record.
In that case, maybe our killer was a member of that class.
Was the defendant a member?
Oh, yes, I think he was.
Judy's tone went from condescension to just plain smugness.
Perhaps you were onto something, Mr. Wilde. This may be related after all.
You're welcome. I knew rabbits were good at jumping, but I didn't think it applied to conclusions.
So I saw that hammer sitting there and gave the padlock a good old whack.
Hold it! Did you really have to use the bloody murder weapon?
To be honest, my first thought was to use one of the decorative rocks around the pleasure pool, but with hooves, it's a little hard to...
Yes, I know, thank you. But that same quality also makes you a potential suspect.
So predictable. Did you really think the prosecution had overlooked that fact?
Nick smiled cheekily, a paw on the back of his head.
I was kinda hoping.
Shame, but we've already compared the witness's hoofprints to those left at the scene. Hers are far too small to be the culprits.
I see.
Finnick slapped a paw to his face.
Every time we gain a little bit of ground, she drags us further back down. Hell like a rabbit.
Or an antlion.
Still, was Bellwether a suspect? He wasn't about to discount the possibility just yet. Not with what he'd noticed.
As it turned out, no one had gotten in after all.
Objection! Just one more question. Why exactly were you expecting something to be stolen in the first place?
Weren't you paying attention? The witness just testified about that.
Oh, I was paying attention, all right. Especially that part about the storeroom key and how only the witness had one.
Didn't she say it was stolen from her? Wouldn't that explain how someone could sneak in?
Yes, Your Honor, but when was it that we came to that conclusion? Just now, when we were talking about it. Before that, she only believed the key to be lost, not stolen. And before that, she didn't even know she had lost it in the first place. She had no reason to fear that someone had gotten into the storeroom.
Bellwether flinched.
I didn't say that.
To his surprise, Judy actually seemed to be considering it.
But why would she lie about something like that?
Obviously, because that was not her real reason for breaking into the storeroom.
Then what was?
Well, she must have,
His smirk disappeared.
Well, maybe she could have... No. But what if...
Did you seriously have no idea where you were going with that?
I got it! It can only mean that something was stolen from the storeroom. By you, Bellwether!
He had to shield his eyes as her wool imploded once again.
Oh hey, looks like I actually got it right. You can't hide your secrets from me!
That's preposterous. The ZPD searched Miss Bellwether as soon as they arrived on the scene. They found nothing out of the ordinary.
Well, of course. If she's smart enough to hide the sledgehammer, she would do the same with whatever she took out of there. Something she didn't want the ZPD to find.
Judy pinched her brow, trying to stave off a migraine.
You don't even know what this something is, and yet you're trying to build a case out of it? Your reputation is well-founded, Mr. Wild Guess.
Nick, be straight with me here. Is this all just one giant bluff?
I wouldn't say giant.
What a fun theory!
Squeaked Clawhauser, who actually seemed completely genuine about it.
But can you tell us where this hiding place is?
Yes, Mr. Wilde. Can you?
No pressure or anything.
But Mystic Spring prided itself on being an open and transparent environment. Was there really any place to hide something around there?
Actually, I believe I can.
Then show us,
said Judy, unconvinced. On cue, Bailiff Bogo unfurled the Oasis diagram for all to see. Thankfully, Nick knew exactly what he was looking for as he extended his arm and pointed.
Take that! I'd like to conduct a search of the mud pit. No better place in a spa to exfoliate your evidence.
No! I mean, there's no need to look there.
Clawhauser looked slowly from her to the bunny.
What do you think, Prosecutor Hopps?
because I am quickly losing faith in my witness, I will consent to this search.
Judy conceded, already pulling out her phone.
Really? Well, thank you.
But if it turns out to be nothing, I do hope you are prepared to face the consequences.
Yep. Thought so.
Judy finished punching in the number and held the phone to one of her large ears as it rang, and was quickly answered.
Detective Oates, have you returned to the crime scene yet?
A good stallion always returns to the stable after the morning run.
I'll take that as yes. Listen, I need you to search the mud pit for... well, we don't actually know yet.
Wilde?
Wilde.
You got it, ma'am. My boys will sweep the hay until it...
Your Honor, I hereby request a 15-minute recess while the crime scene is searched.
Clawhauser nodded eagerly, all too quick to agree.
Request granted!
He then not so discreetly leaned down and whispered into Bogo's ear.
I bet you $20 they find something.
Bogo snorted.
No thanks. I've been in too many of Wilde's cases to take a bet like that.
Am I really that predictable?
Not that he was worried. One look at Bellwether's panic-stricken face was enough to tell him he was right on the money.
Oh, mutton chops.
Until then, court is adjourned.
Clawhauser slammed down the gavel with finality. He went to take another bite before remembering he had no more donuts on there. The feline narrowed his eyes at the empty space.
Bailiff, I need you to conduct a search of your own.
Yes, Your Honor.
11:09 a.m. Zootopia Central Courthouse. Defendant Lobby Number 2.
Well, that was fantastic!
Finnick yelled the second the doors closed behind them, once again dragging his briefcase through the lobby.
15 minutes of sitting around while the outcome of this trial rests inside a pool of mud. Frankly, it seems pretty fitting for us.
Hey, I think that prosecutor was slinging way more mud than the two of us.
Well, you sure seem relaxed about all this.
Come on, you can't tell me that sheep isn't hiding something.
Yeah, but how do you know she just doesn't want to keep anyone from reading her diary?
Because the mud would ruin the pages.
He swiftly sidestepped Finnick's attempt to swing the briefcase into his groin.
Whoa there! If you have an objection, you can just yell it like normal mammals.
Hey now, there's no need to fight. We're all friends here.
Yak stepped out behind them, mellow as usual and oblivious to all the trouble he'd caused during the trial.
Hope your cellmate feels the same way.
Huh?
What my partner means is that we're not out of the woods yet. We still need to figure out what kind of piece Bellwether's holding on to before we can puzzle this together.
Better be a signed confession with video evidence at this rate.
The point is, we can't make any conclusions yet one way or another. But whatever's underneath that mud pit, we'll be ready for it.
Are you always this insufferably optimistic?
Finn, seriously.
Did that sound like me to you?
Blinking in confusion, Nick froze as he suddenly picked up a new scent in their midst. One that his instincts identified as meek prey, but the rest of him already knew better.
Hello to you too, Prosecutor Hopps.
The rabbit stared back at him. Well, more like stared up at him. Actually, she was really staring into him, as if hoping to see what he was all about if she just looked hard enough.
Good luck, sweetheart. I haven't lost a poker game in 20 years straight.
Sure enough, she soon gave up the effort, frowning in dissatisfaction.
You're not like the other defense attorneys I've met. There's something different about you that I just can't put my finger on.
Great deductive skills. I can see why you're such a revered prosecutor, Carrots.
I said, don't call me that!
It was almost cute the way she stood up on her tiptoes to gain more height, but he didn't dare say as much, not without the gavel to get away with it. The two lawyers locked eyes, engaged in a battle of wills.
Hey, we're kinda in the middle of something here.
Finnick forcibly pulled them apart.
And we don't have to tell you anything. So how about you scurry on back to your own side,
Now, let's not be hasty.
Nick looked down at him patiently.
Miss Hopps wants to know more about me, and it is a gentleman's duty to oblige.
Are you making fun of me?
Wouldn't dream of it. Now what can I do to help the Fuzzy Wuzzy Bunny put things together?
Another battle of wills had begun. This one to see whether or not Judy would slap him before the recess was over.
You can start by answering my question. Are you always so optimistic about your trials?
Oh no, not at all. I'm not even optimistic about this one. Just confident.
Is that so?
She seemed disappointed.
With all due respect, your particular skill set does not strike me as one to inspire such confidence.
I'm not talking about my skills.
Oh?
I mean that I'm confident in my client.
He said, pointing over to Yax. The bovine smiled and waved at her, as if she weren't currently trying to put him in jail.
And no matter what you say or do, I believe in his innocence.
I hope you realize how naive that is.
He shrugged.
Maybe, but that's always been my motto. Because I know better than anyone the value of having someone who believes in you.
I see.
Judy wasn't looking at him, yet clearly interested.
That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
She spun on her heel and made to leave.
Wait, that's it?
That's it.
She stopped in place, but kept her back to him.
I now know for sure that you are a different breed of attorney. Nevertheless, I have a duty to fulfill and I will see it through to the end.
Even if the end is an innocent mammal going to jail? Is that really what you want?
He couldn't see her reaction, but she gave it away, subconsciously reaching up to touch the scars on her cheek.
It doesn't matter what I want.
He didn't get to ask for clarification before she stormed off. When he saw her in the courtroom again, he knew that brief moment of weakness would be long gone, replaced by the same hardened prosecutor he'd become familiar with.
Oh, jeez, what was her problem?
I don't know,
Nick said, watching as she disappeared around the corner.
but I think I'd like to find out.